Hi, this is Kim White with the My Sexy Business Team. I'm here with my co-host,
Coni Meyers with Kick Butt Leadership.
and we are at the Hope to Hope conference. Wowie, wowie, wowie. We just keep repeating the same words over because we've run out of words, I'll just say.
If anybody knows of a word bigger and better than wowie, please send us a message because we're trying to find something.
Because this has been amazing. We have had so many different people on and so many different people pour from their heart and give to everyone who's listening. And I have to tell you, I feel like I'm in a hurry to introduce the next guest because one, I adore her. And if you have not heard of the famous kitchen coach, you're about to meet her. This is one of those things that I talk about. There are some people who have like huge social media numbers that prove their influence. And then there's other people that have been out doing the influencing and their numbers are not to their actually caliber yet. And this one is a great example. Camille Finan is an extraordinary woman who has been there, done that. That's what I'll say. She has done so many things, but she's bringing something absolutely revolutionary to social media, and she just started it. And when I feel honored, I'm a friend. When I feel honored, I'm a biz bestie. But I am really honored today because she is on honoring my son and his memory by coming on today to share hope with the world. So Camille, thank you and welcome to Hope to Hope.
Thank you, ladies. I'm so pleased to be here and help in any way I can. I love what you're doing. We all need more hope every single day.
Yes, that is for sure. And the Hope to Hope conference is not for everybody that's just depressed and they're in a dark spot. Like I was in a very dark spot when my son passed away, and thankfully I'm not in that spot today. But I know and understand that place, and I also have learned throughout 51 years that we go through things that we need hope over and over again. It's not something that we just need one dose of it once in our life.
I love that you say that. That is so true, and we all need to hear that. Like, as a grown-up, you need hope. We all have hard weeks, hard months, hard years. So, yeah, I love that. We need it over and over and over again.
Well, I think you are a great example for anyone to follow because you are very successful, but you also have come through some pretty, low places and have come out the other side. And that's the big thing for me with Hope to Hope is there's a lot of people who are willing to be vulnerable, to share their story, to make the world a better place by sharing the things that they went through, but that they can, like everyone listening, can come out the other side. And you are such a beautiful example of hope and persevering.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to share how I got to that space? It wasn't always that great. Yeah. So I'm a finished carpenter, which means I do all the kind of pretty stuff in a house. And specifically, I build kitchen cabinets. But that was a very long time coming. And my story started a very long time ago. And I do tell this story, a longer version of this story on my podcast. It's episode number 5, and I get really deep into it. But basically, my dad left when I was 13. It was the month before going into freshman high school. We were super, super close. It was, very devastating for me. So I did horrible in high school. I didn't connect with anybody. I had a really hard time. And I kind of decided that I was just going to make money and be a successful business person. And that's how I was going to solve this need, this thing I had for my father. He was a contractor as well. And so I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. I went to college. I struggled. I started a lot of different kinds of businesses. I failed. I had bankruptcies. I had cars repossessed. I had basically everything you can possibly imagine trying to become an entrepreneur and thinking that was going to solve my issue, right? My loneliness. And I did end up eventually becoming very good at college. It took 13 years, a very, very long journey. And I paid for the whole thing myself. I was a waitress. I worked 3 days a week, 3 long shifts, and supported myself since I was basically 16, 17. But was lonely, didn't have any friends, was just madly trying to prove myself, right? And it wasn't close to my dad basically ever since then. And so fast forward, I end up becoming really good at college. Kind of a complete coincidence to me because I was really bad in high school. I didn't have a great work ethic with studying, and I was horrible at math, but I wanted to be in business, right? And you need to know math to add up money. And so I ended up just sort of over time really learning to trust myself and trust that I could work hard and solve some of these problems. And I did get to be more confident. And I ended up, after 13 years, graduating with a double bachelor's degree in marketing and entrepreneurship. And then I ended up going on and doing an MBA, a master's in business administration, basically in marketing. And so I was a real smarty pants. I would tell myself, wow, you really made it. And I was probably, I was really young. I mean, I was really still very young emotionally. And I had a very big consulting business on the side. I was making millions of dollars serving clients. And I was also teaching graduate level school at night. And again, on the podcast, I dictate how this actually happened. But fast forward another couple of years, and I basically found myself in a relationship with a boyfriend who was a great guy. He was an engineer. I was not in love. I owned 3 different houses. I had 4 different rental properties. I had 2 different businesses. I was teaching graduate level courses at night, running my own businesses. And I basically had a complete nervous breakdown. I basically just ran myself into a hole. And the long story short is I didn't realize that I was suffering from depression. I probably had it for like 2 years. Like when I really think about it, I probably had completely used up my adrenal function and had no serotonin left. And I was just purely running on adrenaline at that point. And it was like a Saturday. I'll try not to cry because this was a long time ago, but it's still very emotional because I can really remember the feeling of actually feeling suicidal. That has never gone away from me. And the complete loss of real hope that I could actually change anything. And it was a Saturday morning. I was supposed to go to work with a client, and I got I've had firearms my whole life. I grew up in the country, so I had a firearm. And I went into the bathroom, and I was literally on my bathroom floor, and the revolver was against my head. I mean, I was like, I could still feel the metal against my forehead. And I just freaked myself out, basically. And for the first time, I asked for help. That was the first time I asked for anybody since my dad left. And so I called my mom, and I said, I'm about to shoot myself. I'm about to commit suicide. You need to come and get me. And I was a grown-up. I mean, I owned houses, and she immediately just drove 2 hours, picked me up, and I moved back in with my mom, and I had to sell my houses, and I left that relationship, and I had to give up all my clients, and I quit. This took about 1.5 years to really pull out of everything, but I shut down teaching graduate level courses. That was embarrassing, right? Everybody knew. All my clients knew. I ended up having to tell people. And, my mom and sister and brother-in-law just took care of me. I couldn't even eat. I couldn't function. I couldn't get up in the morning. And that was my sort of first time even realizing what depression was and how you can physically just run out of the chemicals in your body. And, situational versus chemical, there's a combination. So I had to really put my life back together. And it took a long time. They had to sign on an apartment. It was really bad. So fast forward a couple of years, and in that year where I was sort of just floating and unhappy, and I was super overeducated, right? Super overeducated, but just didn't want to work in an office anymore. I didn't want to get dressed up and put a suit on. My heart was not in it. And it was my sister. I'm sure I was venting and complaining again, right? What am I going to do with my life? And she was just like, oh my God, for Christ's sakes, all you ever do all the time is remodel your houses, remodel all your friends' houses, remodel everybody's houses. Just go become a carpenter already. Like, oh my God, just become a carpenter. Do something, just try it, right? And so I fiddled around with that and fought that for quite some time, thinking, oh, I'm too good for that. I've got all these fancy degrees. Like, that's just ridiculous, right? Why would I do that? That's just ridiculous. But it was completely my ego, right? It was just my ego that was saying that. I wasn't really listening to my heart. I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on. And I hadn't been all that other times, right? And so one day I just said, I was so sick of myself and so sick of complaining that I was like, that's it. I'm just going to try something different, right? If this is not working, try something new and dramatically new, right? And so I told myself, just pump myself up to be like, just walk onto any job site you see and ask for a job. Just lower your expectations, remove your ego from it. Don't overthink it. Just try it. And so it took me about 2 days. It was the middle of summer, like it is right now. It was like 108 degrees. It was just a horrible time to try to become a contractor. But I just found this job site and I just walked onto the job site. There's just a bunch of Mexicans working, nobody white at all. And I walked into the shack where the boss was, who was white, of course. That's usually what happens. And I just said, I'm looking for a job. And I'm almost 50 now, but I was, 5'2", 95, maybe 100 pounds. I'm about 30 pounds heavier now. I was very little, right? Very little. And I looked even younger. I mean, I looked probably 12. I don't know. And I think he was so shocked that I was asking for the job that I think he couldn't even think of an answer. And so he said, okay, come back tomorrow, right? And I just walked back off the job and got in my car and just bawled, right? Just cried the whole way home. And but I had done it. Like, I had faced that little fear. And so I went back the next day, and I think he was shocked that I came back. So he kind of let me start. And we dug ditches all day long. And that was the start of my journey becoming a contractor. And, I just kept moving up and moving up and moving up. And I think I was so excited by learning something that I absolutely really loved. Like, I really connected with it, that the hardship and how difficult it was, and, and how the guys they didn't treat me badly. They just was like weird, right? That I was there. And so after a few years of doing better and keep moving up, I bounced around to different jobs, and I kept, getting more skills and getting more skills and getting better positions. And eventually I kind of maxed out at what I could do. And because I'm always interested in getting more qualified, right? That's bred into me. I said, well, I really want to know what people in the union are doing. And so if I join the carpenters union, then I'll really be able to say I'm a carpenter, right? I'm qualified. I was really already qualified, okay? But you know how girls are, right? We want to be overqualified. So I joined the carpenters union, and that was another whole experience. And I was there for a while, and I pretty much learned everything I could there. And then I ended up leaving, and privately, somewhere in the carpenters union, I found my niche in kitchens, basically. I found that I really loved cabinetry and countertops, right? And with those two things, you could redo a room, basically. Every room has some sort of cabinetry and some sort of countertops in it. And so that's when I really focused on kitchens themselves and getting even better at kitchens. And I sort of left all the other stuff behind, and I ended up working for a local guy. The last little piece of the puzzle for me was learning how to do countertop fabrication. And so I got hired. Again, I'm still really impressed with myself that I did this, because I don't know if I could do this today. But I basically walked into a huge fabrication shop that, again, is run entirely by Mexicans, right? It's only Mexican guys and maybe like 2 white guys out of hundreds of fabricators. And I walked into that company, and I said I wanted an appointment with the owner, and who had ended up being Indian, and his name is Fadi. And I said, I want a job. I want to learn how to be a fabricator. And he was, again, shocked. And I went back several more times, and he eventually said, okay, I don't know why you want to do this work. It's so incredibly hard. But I absolutely loved it. I loved it. And so I became a certified fabricator. So I really understood how to make how to make countertops from scratch, right? All kinds of materials. And that was the last piece I needed, because now I could do everything myself, and I knew how to hire for it. I knew how much it cost. I knew all the inside stuff. And so then I probably would have worked there for a long time, but I just couldn't stand working for other people again. And it just kept coming up. And I said, I think I can do this better. And so I left and I started my own kitchen remodeling business. And so that's what I've been doing for all these years, basically, helping women remodel their kitchens and not get ripped off and not get taken advantage of. And I kind of developed a new way of doing it, a new system. And I kind of have revolutionized in my own little area, like how to do it. And so that's what I've been doing. And there's still things I'm doing moving forward, but that's kind of what got me to here.
Yes, but I want to go back again, because that was fast.
I know. It's a lot to share in a short amount of time.
Well, I want to point out something that I think has been like on the media a lot lately, and that is, we think of people that are depressed as different than what they actually are. Yep. We don't think of the Kate Spades in the world or the Camille Finans of the world. We don't think of those people as being capable of being suicidal or being depressed, because you had it all. Yeah. You had your wealth, so to speak, taken care of, and people don't realize, especially when you've been running on nothing.
Yeah.
Like you just don't realize how dark some place can get, even when it looks good on the outside.
Yeah. For me, I think the big lesson is, I know a lot of people, that's part of my sort of new life that I'm trying to build right now from the last couple of years to make a bigger impact. I definitely am really passionate about women that are ambitious, because they, there are people that are not that ambitious that get depressed, but there's a lot of people who are very ambitious and very successful who their lives get, you and I have talked about this before, they're incongruent. What they're showing and what they're feeling, their outsides don't match their insides, and what they're working on doesn't match what they want to be doing, or there's something incongruent. And I think, I think certainly for someone like Kate Spade, I think her life was incongruent with what she was presenting. And, I still struggle with that. I still have to remind myself that if I'm not feeling a certain way and it's not going the way I want or whatever, I have to be very careful about, okay, it's incongruent. I have to really, really watch that and think about that, because if you're ambitious, you can easily go off full steam in a direction that is really making you more and more and more miserable, because you're either really good at something. This is a lesson I've learned, right? Because I'm good at a lot of things, but being good at something does not mean it makes you happy or satisfied or fulfilled.
Exactly.
A lot of us that are very ambitious are really poor at recognizing our feelings. We can see it in someone else maybe, but it's a lot harder to be honest with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the people that that eventually got to that point, their lives were very incongruent. And so I really, really want to try to help change that for women, and be honest and full disclosure with myself, that I have to really, really watch that with myself. So.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really important point in that. As a matter of fact, before we started the conference, Kim and I had a conversation about the path that I'm on. And he pointed out some things. We can never coach ourselves. We can never mentor ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to have somebody that's looking at our lives and seeing us for who we are and because a lot of times people see passion in us. Like I know with my clients, I can see the passion and where they need to go. I'm not going to tell them. They need to feel it and express it and figure it out themselves. So I'll support them in that effort. But what you're saying is absolutely true. You can't do it for yourself. You can try to be as honest with yourself as possible. But there's times when you need someone else to say, hey, you're not going down that path. That yes, you could be good at that, but it's not in congruence with your passion.
Yeah.
So,
I really like the word congruence better than happy or successful, because those words don't really communicate the feeling of congruence. Like, I think Kim, right, is very congruent with her life, and I'm hoping to get there, right? I'm building all the stuff I've been doing for the last 2 years to get to full congruence and really be able to be my full self. But now at least I recognize, like, having the kitchen remodeling business, which I'm now shutting down because that's one phase of my life and I loved it, but it's holding me back from this other bigger purpose that I want to serve. And so that is still incongruent right now, right? But at least now I recognize that, instead of just thinking, oh, I'm unhappy. Well, unhappy doesn't really, it's, what do you do with that, right? It's hard to know what the next step is, versus if you're in congruence, things match, right? What you're doing every day or the things you're working on match how you feel inside and the actions you're taking every day. So I really love that word that Kim, shared with me. That's really resonates. I think congruence is really important in your life, in your marriage, in your relationships. I think the happiest people that are truly just really satisfied, those aspects of their life are congruent. That's how I would describe it.
Well, I've had the other side, is why I understand it.
Yeah.
Like, I've had the incongruent side, and it was miserable.
It feels really bad. Yeah.
So it definitely is. And what Miss Connie was talking about, her vision, she joined one of my masterminds several years ago, and she told me a vision of what she wanted, and I've never forgotten. Like, she told it from a place of passion and of, really a place of reality, even though it wasn't reality yet. And then what she was about to start doing was, it didn't match. It did not. It was congruent with what she said, because she wants to do like international retreats instead of being like confined to one space, or and even though that seems like it's such a simple, a simple thing, we cannot do that for ourselves. Right. Like, we see things a lot of times. We know something is wrong, like incongruent, right. We know what it is.
Exactly. Something doesn't feel right, but we can't quite put our finger on it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
I love it when I'm talking to somebody and you can totally see where they need to go and what they need to do, and yet they don't see it. I was a perfect example of that, and so are you. It's like it's finding that path, and then when they get it, like when we were talking, I got it. I said, "Oh, you're right." But it's kind of like, she calls it the butterfly syndrome. There's this shiny little object over here that looks really good, and I really want to be a part of that, and yet it wasn't a part of the path that I really do need to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're a great example, though, of not the whole, there's a way to reinvent ourselves. I know that that's a popular, trendy way to say it, but I think it's more that you're just really coming congruently into who you really are, because your heart is so big, and you have such a desire to serve on such a big scale. You are a major influencer. There are so many things about you that somebody else needed to come in and tell you. I think that's the big thing, is somebody else needed to make you see what is really going on, because you're a huge influencer. And when we don't see that or don't understand that, and it's not about you. That's the thing I hope anyone listening understands. It's not that we can sit back and go, oh yeah, that's me. Right. It's that we have this responsibility to show up. We have this responsibility to serve the people that are waiting for us. And you coming into, this realm of serving in such a big way, it's like your podcast. Your podcast is a big part of being congruent. Yeah.
I think it's actually the first step I took was, I started, I don't know, 7 years ago, I started teaching these power tool classes to women. And that was probably the very first step of thinking, what can I do? I want to make a bigger impact. I don't want to just do this. And that was, we had thousands and thousands of women come through that. And that was an amazing experience, but it was still very limited locally. And it took up a lot of my time again. And so I wasn't able to scale that. And so that's when I really started thinking about scale and impact and reach that's not local specific, right? So once I kind of came up with that idea and that was really scary to think about that because I'm a Cancer and I'm an introvert. So I am as introverted as it comes in public, right? So I had to really get over that. And that took a couple of years to like get over that and be able to like grow into my skin with that and go, okay, you're going to have to get out there if you want to actually impact these women on a bigger scale. And you're going to have to just let that go. And so that's when I came up with the idea for the podcast, which is called Remodel Your Life Podcast. And so it's basically about how to rebuild your life from the foundation up. And because it's not location specific and it's not time specific and it doesn't involve money in the sense of like, I don't have to invest a bunch of stuff or build a product or make a product or ship a product. I can have an impact on a lot more women in a much easier way for me to be able to talk into their ears and share some of these experiences and really try to help them. So that's why I love the podcast, because it gives me reach and impact without taking a lot out of my life, right? Because I'm already really busy. And so it's a really effortless thing for me to do. And I get to really be exactly who I actually am. And so I would say the podcast is the first time I actually really expressed who I actually am at 48 years old, right? 49 years old. That was the first time it was completely congruent. Mm-hmm. The stuff I talk about on there, my episode 5, where I talk about, the suicide attempt, that is truly congruent. And that feeling felt amazing. So I'm just looking for more and more and more of that feeling, basically, and all the other things that I'm doing too.
Well, I love what you're doing because you are like crossing over to be able to serve the masses instead of serving a small local market.
Yeah, and exactly.
And I think that is something that most high-level influencers come to that place where you did also of realizing this is not enough. Like where I'm at is not enough, and I do have more to share and more to give. Yeah. And that, I'm sorry, but that's a super sexy spot to be. Because, you coming on here, you already know how I feel about you, but, you coming on here blesses me huge because you're serving in another capacity of giving people hope of, we've all been through tough stuff. Yeah. I mean, life is difficult, period. There doesn't even have, there's nothing has to be after that. Life is difficult.
Life can kick you in the junk.
Exactly. For sure. And so, and some of it, and I say this all the time, some things are inflicted on us and some things we inflict on ourselves.
Guilty. Guilty. Inflicted on myself, yes. Both.
But, when you realize that and you realize that the vulnerability that you allow in your life is actually a superpower. Yeah. It actually creates things that you cannot understand until you do it. Like we can talk all day long about it. And if you don't get to the place where you will open up, you just don't understand how amazing that can be. And it's scary. Like it is scary.
It's very scary. Yeah.
It's scary for you as an introvert to come out and, do anything that's going to require you to be out.
Right. Yeah. And face judgment and face, criticism or just somebody just not liking you or whatever. Right. And I definitely have that, ambitious, AAA, whatever they call it, a personality where, most of my jobs academically, you had to be the absolute best at what you were doing. And as a contractor and a carpenter, like you cannot make any mistakes. They pay attention to absolutely everything. So, I've definitely built a life around perfection. All of my jobs had to be perfect. There was zero room for error. So I have to literally unlearn that behavior for myself. It's okay if it's 80%, right? It's okay. The world's not going to end, right? So I really, that's a real learning experience for me to see the value in things not being perfect. And doing these little things where you're a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more honest about where you really are. It's like a muscle. Like that muscle that I had, that perfection muscle, was as strong as you could get, right? The biggest possible bicep that you could get. And now I have this tiny little, not perfect muscle, right? And it's very, very little. So I have to keep working that little muscle and getting that vulnerability muscle to be stronger and more comfortable. But I will. I feel like it's literally like about a half a bicep now. So
I've watched you grow in like such a short span of time that I adore you, first off. Like,
ditto.
As a person, you are amazing as a person. Whether you do anything online or you do anything offline or whether you do anything ever, you are an amazing human being. Like that is for sure. And I love you. And I just cannot say enough like good things about you because your heart is so, so precious.
Thanks.
I want to interject something here, because the first time I saw you was when you were on the interview with Kim. And my very first thought was, wow, she is so authentic. I mean, that's how you came across the very first video I saw of you.
Oh, good. I hope so. I'm trying to be authentic.
And the second thing I thought is, you need to be on HGTV. First thought was how authentic, and the second one was she needs to be on HGTV.
Except that I want to own the channel. I don't want them controlling my content. That's why I'm going to create my own content. So that's the difference.
That's why you're my flavor. I'm telling you.
I don't want it to be fake. I want it to be the real thing of what it's actually really like. So.
Yeah. Well, and you have been doing cooking shows on your social media to introduce yourself more, because like being an influencer in real life, that you've got handled. Being an influencer where people outside of your, scope, they get to know you. One of the things you've been doing is doing your cooking show. And I just want to show you what I did, because I am a princess, so I get to invite myself to whatever party I want. That's how I feel.
Okay.
I had Lori Apgar make me something because I need to come on the cooking show. I have my apron ready.
I love it. We can wear our matching aprons. I love it. But yours is a lot sparklier than mine. That's pretty cute. I might have to add some sparkles to mine.
Well, I have to have sparkles or I just can't show up.
You can't do it. Yeah, exactly. I love it.
I think that your cooking, when you're cooking things and you're giving people simple things to do, or you're just having conversation, I think that you have such a dynamic mission, I will say, to empower women and to give them the understanding that they don't have to be perfect either, and that they can have this place. You're a soft place to land.
Good.
And you're no baloney. That's the other thing. No BS. I mean,
that's true.
You tickle me because, and I'm going to tell on you. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I just tell. But I was asking for feedback about something, and I was getting frustrated because sometimes when you get to a certain perceived level, people don't want to tell you anything. They just kind of, pat you on the head, kind of.
Yeah.
And I wanted feedback because I also want to serve better. Whatever I'm doing, I want to be better and better and better. And you were the one that said, I think you need to change this. I think you need to do this. I think you need to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And no one in my life had said anything about the things that you said. And so to me, I feel like you are so brilliant in ways that are so beyond a kitchen remodel and so far beyond even a simple podcast, that I can't wait to see where you go. I mean, I can't wait to see who all you impact. And like I said before, I hope you let me still come and carry your tool bag.
Oh, for sure.
Because you are such an influencer.
Thanks, ladies.
I'm just proud of you. I'm sorry. I'll stop.
I have to say, I think the first time I saw you was that interview, and I immediately was drawn to you, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So congratulations on everything you're doing and where you're headed.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it. And all the help I've gotten from everybody, from all of you. So it definitely you need people to help with the wheelbarrow. You need people to help carry your tools and come alongside you. So, I've definitely learned that lesson in the last 6 months for sure.
Yeah. Well, besties are the best.
They are the best. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing and really, opening up so that other people that are going through those things can know that they can get through them too.
Yeah.
We want to say we're not doctors, and that's something that if you are having trouble, please don't, don't hesitate to go and get like the
call the 800 number or call a friend and say you need help. Like, just tell a friend. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you, ladies. Have a great rest of your day. I know you've got a full day with some amazing speakers still.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Love you.
I'm Coni Meyers with Kick Butt Leadership.
And I'm Kim White with the My Sexy Business Team. This is the Hope to Hope Conference. We will be back at 1:30 Central Standard Time with our next session, and we'll see you in the next session.